If you've just joined us on BBC News, the time is now a little after 9:30 in the UK. At the end of an evening in which parliamentary business has concluded, but the House of Commons, the corridors and the bars of Westminster are thronged with activity, gossip, intrigue, argument, and people having a very large drink after a very stressful day. It was a day which began with one of the Prime Minister's key allies, the Foreign Secretary James Cleverly, unable to confirm whether or not the government would uprate pensions next year under its triple lock policy, which it was committed to in its last election manifesto. Then at lunchtime, the Prime Minister surprised everybody at Prime Minister's Questions, only her third appearance at the dispatch box in that job, when she announced that of course the government was going to maintain its policy, which rather caught the SNP leader in Blackford unawares, because he'd expected her to repeat what her Foreign Secretary had said just 3 hours earlier. And then this afternoon, after a relatively unproblematic Prime Minister's Questions for Liz Truss, with everybody saying she'd bought herself a little time, perhaps the ability to stagger on until the mini budget is delivered on day of days, Halloween of all days to choose, the bombshell resignation from the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, resigning over a technical breach of the ministerial code, but using her letter as an opportunity to attack the direction of the government and, by implication, the Prime Minister. Let's talk now to our political correspondent, Arnie Wells, who's here to give us an update on what is happening. Arnie, that's a very, very quick upsum of how we got to this evening, but then things got even more dramatic during the course of the evening.
That's right, Sean. I'm quite literally kind of glued, as we all are, to my phone this evening, waiting for answers on some of the key questions that still remain outstanding this evening. But as you say, this afternoon kicked off with that resignation of Suella Braverman as Home Secretary, replaced by Grant Shapps, who was only sacked by Liz Truss about 6 weeks ago. Suella Braverman's resignation letter did spell out that she had made a mistake and made certain security breaches, but heavily implied in that letter was the suggestion that Liz Truss should also consider resigning, as she wrote in her letter to the Prime Minister that she had accepted she had made mistakes, was taking responsibility for them and resigning. So that was the first drama of the day. Then there was this chaos in the Houses of Parliament this evening as Labour had tabled a vote on whether or not MPs should in future get a vote on the government's plans to bring back fracking. Now, Tory MPs have been told earlier in the day that if they didn't vote with the government in this and oppose Labour's motion, they would risk losing the Conservative whip and having to sit as an independent MP because this vote was being treated as a kind of de facto vote of confidence in the government and Liz Truss themselves. Now, a lot of MPs had privately expressed their discomfort with the government's plans on fracking. Some Tory MPs had said publicly they were willing to potentially sacrifice that Conservative whip for the sake of voting against the government. Now, after that vote took place, Westminster suddenly blew up with different allegations of what had really been going on behind the scenes. Labour MP Chris Bryant accused some government ministers of manhandling certain Tory MPs to make them vote with the government in that lobby where they all queued to vote. Then we also are hearing from a number of Tory MPs, although this hasn't been confirmed by the government, that the Chief Whip and Deputy Chief Whip in charge of party discipline had said that they were resigning as well amidst all this chaos. Now, that hasn't been confirmed by the government. There are some suggestions that that may not necessarily be the case, but the fact that even government ministers like tonight Jacob Rees-Mogg are going on the television and not able to say with any kind of certainty whether some of their own government colleagues are still in post or not shows just how chaotic this afternoon has been. I'm
just looking at the live page, the BBC live page on the BBC website, which people can access at any time. And you've just posted on there, Ione, about your frustration trying to get answers by ringing the Whip's office, and nobody's picking up the phone.
That's right, no one is picking up the phone. We have tried all the official channels in government, in the Whip's office, to try and get clarity on whether or not these Tory MPs are right to say that the Chief Whip and Deputy Chief Whip have resigned. Now, what it sounds like from some of the Tory MPs that I spoke to over in Parliament today is that essentially some people overheard the Chief Whip, Wendy Morton, saying something along the lines of, I'm not the chief anymore. What's not clear is whether that was an official resignation or perhaps a turn of phrase or perhaps something she was considering. And there's so many different kind of rumours and speculation swirling this evening. But as I say, no one is currently picking up the phone to confirm either way. We did, however, manage to bump into the Deputy Prime Minister, Therese Coffey, on her way to the Private Members Club, the Carlton Club, where some Tory MPs are gathering tonight. She, when stopped by one of my colleagues outside, did say that the Chief Whip had done a great job today, which is implying there that perhaps she is staying in post after all. But we are still waiting for that confirmation, crucially, to see if the person in charge of party discipline is staying in that role going forward.
Arnie, are you the late correspondent tonight? Are you expecting to burn the midnight oil?
I am the late correspondent. I think it is going to be quite a late one tonight. There is so much movement going on. We've had Tory MPs just this evening even going as far as to say that they want Liz Truss out by tomorrow. So I think things are moving very quickly, and I'm sure we're going to have lots and lots of updates as the evening goes on.
Good. Well, look, if you do, can I please plead with you? I'm going to be standing here till just before midnight. If you've any news, run out or stay in that nice warm studio, but let me know, will you? Arnie Wells, thank you very much. Let's talk now to Caroline Sloan.